The year was 1928. The United States was nearing the end of the Roaring Twenties and the chaos and upheaval of the events that lay ahead in 1929. However, in 1928, life was still good. Herbert Hoover was elected the 31st President of the United States. You could buy your first loaf of sliced bread known as clean-made sliced bread for 10 cents. Mickey Mouse made his screen debut in the silent cartoon Plane Crazy, and the first all-talkie movie, Lights of New York, was released.
Good night, Jim? Yep. And for all the business I did, I might as well have been closed up all day.
A radio program called Amos and Andy made its debut, and it was the year that Philo T. Farnsworth invented that invention of inventions, the television. It was also the year of the infamous Okeechobee hurricane that struck West Palm Beach, Florida in September, killing over 6,000 people. In 1928, a gallon of gasoline was 25 cents, and you could buy a new Ford Roadster for $385 and drive it to your new home in a style called the Rockford, purchased in kit form from a Sears catalog that cost $2,100. The average American worker that year made $1.15 an hour, or about $2,600 a year. The top movie of 1928 was The Crowd, starring James Murray and Eleanor Boardman. The top song from the year was Can the Circle Be Unbroken by the Carter Family.
I was standing by the window on one cold and cloudy day, and I saw the hearse come rolling for to carry my mother away.
One other notable event of 1928 occurred on December 16th in Morrison, Illinois.
My name is Evelyn Griffith. I was born in Morrison, Illinois. I was born December 16th, 1928, to a father who came here from the Netherlands, and my mother was born in Morrison also. I am the youngest of 5 children. I had one brother, and I had a sister who was the oldest, but she passed away in her early marriage from childbirth, but not from childbirth. Complications set in. And then my brother was next in age, and then his name was Dwayne, and I had Lorraine and Pauline, my 2 older sisters. I was the youngest.
How'd you guys get along?
Fairly good, we did. I was raised in a very strict religious family, for which I am glad today. At the time I thought it wasn't so nice, but I think it gave me a lot of good moral thoughts. But we got along pretty good. I don't think back in those days families were necessarily brothers and sisters as close as what I realized my kids were, and still are, really.
All the kids have responsibilities and chores to do?
Oh yes, many. Dishes, beds made. I had to help with some housework, and we couldn't leave until it was all done. So that was good too. At the time you don't think so when you're young, but I know now it was.
Earliest memory of your childhood?
Well, I was always with my dad on the ice truck, because one sister had some medical problems, which took a lot of my mother's time. And very early in life, I don't know how young, as early as I can remember, I would get up with my dad in the morning, anywhere from 4 o'clock on. And in the wintertime, it was interesting because there were no heaters in the cars and trucks at that time. So I had a big fur robe always wrapped around me. But as a child, my biggest thrill of being with him is we got to go up and have breakfast early every morning at a restaurant. And my parents were poor, so we didn't go out to eat very often. And that, as a child, that was a big thrill to me. The man owned the restaurant knew we'd always be coming, so when I walked in, he had a cup of hot chocolate waiting for me and a cup of coffee for my dad, but that was a big deal. And then I rode with Dad so much on the truck that in the summertime, he often had to hire another man and another truck to help with the ice work. And I knew my dad's route so well that he'd make me get on the other truck and show him where they had, all the houses he had to go to. I had a good childhood. I enjoyed that. But I think as a result, I was always closer to my father than my mother, because that's who I spent most of the time with.
Okay. In a couple of sentences, how would you describe your father?
Very friendly. He would give you the last nickel in his pocket if you needed it. And he worked very hard. He was a good father.
What about your mother?
My mother was the stricter of the two. I always say, and I feel in my heart it's true, my mother never complimented me on, or I don't know about the others, but on anything. But if there was something wrong or you didn't bring a good grade home, you were punished for it. She was raised, I know, different than my dad was. She was very good to me, and I loved my mother, not that. But I did hear my older sister admit one day, and it surprised me, that she don't remember her mother ever saying, "I love you." And I said, I never heard it either. I know she did, but she would never tell you that. In fact, she made the remark, I think as a kid I asked her once why she never said things like that to us, and she said because too much praise is not good for a child. So there was a difference. My dad was more the friendlier, I felt.
What kind of relationship did your mother and father have?
A good one, but I could see where the age difference can be a problem, because they used to play cards and do things, and as my dad got older, and after working so hard, he was ready for bed at night, whereas my mother would have enjoyed playing some cards or doing something. There I could see a difference in when there's a big age difference in a married couple.
Other than delivering the ice and coal, did your dad have any other jobs?
No, I don't. Well, yes. As a matter of fact, late in life, he went to work at Northwestern Steel and Wire Company in Sterling, and he was killed there, unfortunately. He was, as I say, a very kind, helpful father, and there was a Mexican man that was supposed to hook when the crane dropped the shovel, I guess they call it. You had to hook the two sides together. And when my dad was walking by and he saw this little Mexican man having trouble, so he stepped over to reach down and hook this together, but the Mexican man stepped back, and that was a signal to the crane operator to lift the. And so my dad died a tragic death. He was lifted up a couple hundred feet, they say, and dropped on his head. He lingered for a while, unfortunately, because it was bad. But he did pass away from that.
What about your grandparents on either side of your family? Do you have any memories of your
Never knew either grandmother. The grandmother, I think, on my dad's side, passed away in Holland, and my grandmother on Mom's side died in Morrison. I just knew my two grandfathers. I called one little grandpa and one big grandpa, because the one from Holland was they were both from Holland, but my dad's side was a very short man, whereas my dad and his brothers were very tall. And my other grandpa was a tall man. He lived in Sterling. Saw more of my Grandpa Vos. When he was alone, he lived in his own house for years and years and kept it spotless. But he did take turns going to different families for dinner on Sunday, so I saw a lot of him.
Did your mother ever have a job?
Yes. She worked in my brother-in-law's grocery store for a while after we were all gone. She didn't work while we were little. And then after my father passed away, she worked for J.C. Penney in Clinton, Iowa.
What would you consider the most memorable event of your childhood?
I really think being with my father all that time. I really did enjoy that, and I was with him until I had to go to school and couldn't do it. I could still ride in the summertime, but no, plus I'd get a lot of free candy bars and ice cream at places.
Did you like school?
No, I did not like school.
Why not?
I just thought there were better things to do. I enjoyed grade school more than high school, but I had no desire to go on to college.
What were those other things that you thought you could be doing rather than being in school?
Working. I enjoyed my work. I had good jobs.
When you were in high school, did you have a favorite class?
I had one teacher. She was my algebra teacher, Mrs. Kacker. K-A-C-K-E-R. She was a very lovely, kind lady. But no, I graduated when I should have, but I never did like school.
Did you participate in any activities in high school, sports clubs, plays?
No, I did not. I think we had to go home. Of course, there's a lot more sports activity now than there was back then. I am trying to think. I don't think there was a lot of after-school stuff at all. We had our gym classes and things like that, and I played some basketball in gym and stuff, but really nothing extra. There wasn't any like there is today.
I have a best friend.
Yes, I did. A couple of them. There was a girl by the name of Geraldine Zeidema and a girl by the name of Marjorie Ottens. We used to run around to do a lot of fun things together. Oh, and Jean Cuphammer. She lived on a farm in Melbourne, And I used to go out and stay out at her house on weekends and stuff.
What kind of things did your group of friends do for?
We are allowed to go to movies during the week, and we would just do things like that. And when I was out on the farm, there was always things to do or get into that we shouldn't. But no, life was different when I was a youngster than it is today.
Did you ever get in trouble when you were in high school?
No, maybe a little sass. Teachers didn't like sass too well.
What did they do if they caught you sassing them?
Just not really any. Well, we had one teacher, she never slapped a girl, but she would slap boys right across the face. When I was in high school, I saw it more than once. She'd just yell at us, but and a few, I didn't, but some people were sent to the office, and I guess they just sat in the office with the principal the rest of the time. Actually, our childhood was so much different from today, you wouldn't believe it. Just, there wasn't anything much, really. It's a wonder there wasn't more trouble for kids to get into that were prone to do so, because there were no extra activities or anything.
Do you think that's good, the difference? Do you think your generation was brought up?
No, I think today, however, I think some parents overdo it, but I think it's good to have your children involved in activities and things to do for a while after school. I think they need time to be on their own and get a life of their own to intermix with other children and stuff, but I do think the activities are good.
Do you remember your first date in high school?
My first date? Yeah. This young man that I dated in high school was a friend of this Jean that I'd go out to her farm on weekends, and he lived in the area. And I was a freshman, and he was a junior, and president of the junior class. And he invited me to go to the prom with him, and I was not allowed to do so because we were not allowed to dance. We could go to roller skating parties where the church sponsored it, and we could put our arms around a guy and just like dancing on roller skates, but that was different. So I had to turn down, and it broke my heart. That was my biggest, and I dated a couple other guys not in high school, nothing serious.
You said you used to go to the movies.
Rarely, but yes, once in a while we were allowed to go.
Do you have a favorite movie from that time period that sticks out in your mind?
Oh my, I'm not going to be able to say the name of one of the big prominent movies. What did we get to go see? Gone with the Wind, I believe. That was a great movie.
I know a lot of people listened to radio back then.
Yes.
You remember any of the radio programs that you used to listen to?
No, but my father listened to them a lot. He, of course, we had no television in those days. And I never really, I'd turn on music a lot, but my dad had programs, I don't know which ones, but he really enjoyed. Big old boxy radios sitting in your house. First job after high school was secretary to the editor of the local newspaper. It was a real nice job. I enjoyed that. And we had one of the reporters who was an albino man from Iowa. Really, really nice guy. Joe Smathers was his name. And we used to really have a good time in that office, except when I had to take dictation from the boss. He'd spend the afternoon on the country club and enjoy a few drinks. And then he'd come home or to the office late in the afternoon and say, Evelyn, I got some letters, we have to get out. But he'd have a can of ripe olives also in his hand. As he tried to dictate, he was chewing olives. But I got the job done, but usually left late on golf days because he didn't get there in time to dictate them quick enough. And then after that, I went to work for Riddle's funeral home and furniture store. And I might add, my boss at the newspaper did appreciate me. He gave me a brand new Royal Portable typewriter when I left. Or maybe he was glad to get rid of me, I don't know. But anyhow, I got a nice gift. And then I would work at the furniture store and often go up and sit at the funeral home on visitations and things at night.
You've lived through some very interesting times in art history. Can you remember what life was like for you one time in American history?
Yes, we had no extra food in the house like we have or we provided for our kids that, you could just go snack out of the refrigerator or this or that. My dad had a huge garden, but round steak at that time was my favorite meat. But if we had something like round steak, because there were several of us, she'd get a big round and then cut it in pieces and you'd get one piece. And that's and then sugar and all that during the war was rationed. But no, there was not, like today, or when we raised our family, you put a big platter of meat on the table and hope to have some left. But no, you did not do that in that day, and things were divided equally, so everybody got and we never even got to drink milk as often as we wanted because it was so expensive. And like I say, my parents were poor. But my mother never had a meal that she didn't cook with it, whether it be pudding or like cream peas or cream potatoes. That's how she fed us in those days. And we didn't suffer a bit. But today, people would have a fit over that kind of stuff. We were allowed to drink coffee at a very early age, too, I might add. That's the Dutch, I guess, side of life. Because I drank coffee as kids. We could have coffee before we went to school. And we ate out of the garden. We'd have potatoes. He had a regular potato bin built in the basement, and that was heaped every year after the season. We raised a lot of good vegetables.
Do you remember when you first heard about Pearl Harbor?
My brother got called to the service early, for some reason, because he was married with one child, so the draft was really in full swing, taking everybody in. And we did live through the period there. It was very, I don't know what I want to say. We didn't hear from my brother for several months. Didn't know if he was dead or alive, because he was with Patton's Third Army that made the invasion in Europe, and we didn't know if. And so many of the young people did. Farm kids never seemed to go because they could get off with the farm, but the guys in town, there was a lot of them that, and the wartime was, sugar was rationed, and I think coffee was very expensive or hard to get. But I think I can honestly say we lived mostly off of the garden food. You name it, it was in that garden, and huge garden.
How did you get news about what was going on in the war?
Through the radio and stuff. My dad was very intent listening on that, and because the guys that were in the active duty could not put anything, their mail was all censored before it came back to us. And you wouldn't hear a whole lot other than on the radio. Or if somebody did come home, or...
Did your parents talk about the war?
Yeah, they did, but really they didn't find you don't find too much out about what's going on when in the thick of it. My brother finally arrived back in, I don't know where he came in at, but then he got about a 30-day leave at home, but he had to go back then again but he didn't go back overseas then. But he was gone a long time over there. And in fact, he was so in the thick of the war that he would never tell you anything about it. When he got home, he couldn't talk about it. I did find out through my sister-in-law one day that the thing that just tore him apart was he had a best buddy in the service, and they were in the thick of the battle over there, and his buddy got shot and killed right beside him. The gunshot hit him and the other way, but didn't touch my brother. He was not wounded. But she said that's why Dwayne won't talk about it. His best friend was killed right beside him, blown to pieces, I guess. So that would be a little hard to think about. I went to work for Riddle's funeral home and furniture store. That's where I met my husband, Lee. My boss was a very crippled man. He had had polio earlier in his life, walked with a cane. Very nice gentleman, very nice. And he came to me one day and said, Evelyn, I was dating another man quite steady at that time, but he said, I have a wonderful man coming here to serve his apprenticeship. And I've been thinking about you, and he'd be a perfect match for you. He said, just one thing, he's engaged to be married, but if you're any kind of a woman, you can get him. So Lee came down, started his work. Very nice-looking young man. And he asked me out one night, and I said, no, I understand you're engaged to be married. No, I'm not. Broke it off. So I started dating him. We had, I bet he was there for a couple of months, and we'd had a lot of dates. And one day in the afternoon, this nice-looking young lady came in and put her hands out on the counter, and here's this lovely big diamond ring. And she looked at Lee and said, honey, I thought I'd stop in and see you. How you doing? I looked at him, and by this time he's ready to drop over, and I walked out of the room. So I got by that day, and then he said, I saw the next day at work, he said, hey, you want to go to this movie tonight? I said, no, I do not. And I said, I won't be going anywhere with you, so don't ask me. I said, you lied to me. I cannot stand a liar. And I said, I saw her ring. So we cooled it for maybe a week. And one night he called me up and said, can I come over? And I said, no, you aren't welcome at my house. He said, well, I got something to show you. So he came over, stuck his hand in his pocket and pulled the diamond ring out and showed it to me. So he proved to me he did break off the engagement. And that was the beginning of our time together.
Was it love at first sight?
I think so. For both of us. We had a good marriage. He passed away in September, and we would have had 60 years in October.
What did you like about him?
He was good to me and to the family. Our biggest arguments were during teenage years because Lee came from a mother that he was not proud of and didn't treat the children well at all. Unfortunately, Lee's mother came from a very wealthy family. And Lee's dad, who was a wonderful person, Lee was very much like his dad, was just a common, ordinary insurance man. And they got married for whatever reason, and I think she always felt she did. She married below her ideas and money, and there was constant turmoil in the family. And when Grandpa would leave for work in the morning, and Lee was the youngest, still in diapers, and she'd put him outside and lock the doors. There was a big field behind the house they built, and she said those little kids played out in that field all day till Grandpa'd come home. She said, I don't know if she fed them. I never saw her come out and get them. She said Lee's diapers would be hanging and soaking wet, and she said those poor little kids. So she was rough on the little kids. When he'd come home, if she wanted him punished, he had to go get my husband would say a branch, but off the tree and whip the kids with it. And their life was not a good one. Another point there was, I always remember he called his mother Hazel when we'd go there, but he always called my mother, Mother, which was always interesting to me. But anyhow, back to our kids, he would never want to punish our kids, because I said to him one day, I can't do this alone, I need you to take over. And he said, I cannot do it. What I lived through as a child, he said, I vowed I would never put my kids through. So we had more arguments over kids, and because they got to know that pretty well too. They'd ask Mother something in the kitchen when they'd come home that they could do. Mother would say no, so then very coolly they'd go upstairs where Dad was showering after work and not tell him they asked Mom. And then Dad, being the kind of father he was, he'd say, sure, you can do that. And then we had arguments. But that's really about all we truly argued about. That was raising kids.
How did Lee propose to you?
Well, after he showed me the diamond he got back, I think we didn't have a car while we were going together. So we did a lot of walking. And I think just at my house, he came with a very beautiful diamond, still have it. And he said, and by the way, it's brand new.
What was your wedding like?
I was the only one that got married in the Ebenezer, in that church, Ebenezer Reformed. And I was proud because my dad had his old country ideas, so he said, I'll never give a daughter away. I don't give my children away. So when I went to get married, I talked to him and I said, you aren't giving me away, you're really accepting Lee. Will you walk me down the aisle? Took him a while, but he said, yes, I would. So I had a church wedding with several attendants, and my dad walked me down the aisle, and it was very lovely. But then again, we didn't have a car, so his brother-in-law loaned us his car, and we honeymooned in Chicago, of all places, at the Sheraton Hotel. That's where we spent our wedding night.
Do you remember a favorite song you guys might have had?
You know, I can't say it. We did have a song we liked, but I can't say what it was. We went to a lot of dances in our life. We had big bands around. Sterling would get them, and we'd go to Clinton, Iowa, modernistic ballroom. We have danced to Harry James and Glenn Miller and Sammy Kaye and a lot of good bands. Then we also started going down to, it was down by the Tri-Cities, I forget what they called it, with another couple. I swear, I think we went every Saturday night to a big dance hall down there. And we'd get out and have to drive home, but the guy that was driving George always said, gotta have some oats before I go home. So we'd go to a restaurant and eat breakfast. I'd get home about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had a baby. I had to get up to at 6 o'clock, but gee, it didn't bother me a bit in those days. Today it's hard getting out of bed at 9.
Of all your life experiences, things you've gone through, which thing in your life shaped you the most, made Evelyn who Evelyn is?
I didn't really have anything bad in my life. I think we were close enough, like to little grandpa, their deaths. As people passed away, that bothered me a lot because we had some very nice people on my dad's side, friendly people. They were always visiting with each other and coming to each other's house. And as kids, that was nice for us because they had little kids who would come and spent a lot of time on farms. Got homesick a few times as a kid. I'd go out, somebody'd take me out to their farm. They didn't have electricity or anything. And then if there was a thunderstorm, I just got so homesick, my dad had to come get me.
So if you had your grandchildren or great-grandchildren here, and you were to give them some advice based on all your life experiences and things you've gone through, what things would you say to them?
stay close to your family. I think in our day, families were almost closer, most of them, than some are today. We went on picnics and this and that, which you don't hear a lot about today. And also, I think education's very important, more so than it was back in our time. I mean, your college and on education. But enjoy life, I would say. First of all, something that would probably be a shock to a lot of kids today, if we took something on our plate, we didn't leave the table till it was gone. And in that time when I was a child, there were many, many tramps coming to our door. My dad fed every one of them, but they had to sit outside to eat. And we had a coal furnace at that time, and we were told we could throw paper and this and that in there, but he said, don't ever let me catch any kind of food in that furnace. It goes in the garbage if it can't be used for us, because he said the beggarmans get it. And I witnessed a bum in our alley opening the garbage can and taking stuff and putting it in his mouth. So there was, oh no, I would hate to have been caught throwing food away. Never. He said, always put it outside. And another interesting thing, I noticed my dad always kind of would wrap it in a bag or put something around it, I suppose, so keep out what he could. But there were a lot of them, and they claimed in that day and age, I don't know, that these different tramps would mark like garages or some kind of a mark to show these people will feed you. But I never saw him turn one away. He always fed them. Another interesting story is one night we always sat around the dining room table to do our homework and stuff. We had a front porch and the screens were taken down in the winter. And a knock came in the door and my one sister said, come in if your feet are clean. He opened the door and her tramp walked in our house. I thought my mother was going to kill her. This old bum with his, I can still see the old brown overcoat all stained, and she almost got it. She was kind of the favorite in the family, Lorraine, so, but she's the one that told him to, if your feet are clean, come in. So we never yelled, come in again.
All right. What was the rest of that story? What happened after he came in?
Oh, no, Dad got him out. I went up and talked to him, and he asked him if he was hungry, and I was real little at the time, probably in second, third grade or something, but it was hilarious when that man walked in the house. I was scared to death. But no, he fed every tramp. He felt sorry for them all. He said, I know what it is to be poor, but I've never had to beg for food. Oh, I think the death of my sister was bad for me, because I was only about, I think 10 years old, 10 or 11 maybe. And she lived, you probably don't know where it is, but out in what they call Unionville, and just west of Morrison, little village out there. And I used to ride my bicycle. I was very close to her. She was the oldest and I was the youngest, and she kind of took a lot of care of me. And I'd go out to her house after she was married every weekend and spend with her. And she was full term. No, she was 7 months pregnant. I know that some of the papers put mother dies in childbirth, but she didn't. She was taken to the Sterling Hospital. She had an emergency appendectomy, and she got uremic poisoning in the hospital. They had said that Mom and Dad could bring us girls up on Thursday night, but Wednesday night they got a call that they should come to the hospital right away. She had uremic poisoning, and it had spread. It would spread to the baby and kill it, so they took her baby. He was 7 months, little boy. And she passed away on Thursday night late, about midnight. And the baby did survive till Saturday. And then he passed away. And I was so close to her. And another thing in those days, you had funerals in the home. And so they brought this casket in the house. And there was here I'm just about 10 years old, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I looked in that casket, and here's my sister. Just looked as nice as she can, dead, but really nice. Looked like her, with her baby in her arm, and her hand around her baby. Oh yeah, that did something to me. That was the worst tragedy in my young life. And then they'd leave the lights on all night, the casket lights downstairs. And our bedroom was the top of the stairs, and the door was always left open, so I went to bed and I'd wake up and here was this light shining up there, and I knew my sister was downstairs. I had a bad time. And I went down one night, thought I was sneaking down, but my dad was sitting there by the casket. I think he sat with that casket every night till she was buried. And then she was buried out of our home and at the church. And for a young girl, that was pretty traumatic. It was really took something out of me. I have no complaints in my life. And like I say, yes, they were strict, but I think I'm glad they did. I think that's why today, when I get accused of being, well, not you so much, tight with my money, I won't buy this or that. If I want it, I'll buy it. But I know what it is to not have money, and who knows what's ahead of us, you know? And when you see, I think I lived a life that educated me in good moral ways. I really do believe that. They were very strict, but hey, I lived through it.
Well, I think that about does it.